Well, welcome back. We are at it again. This is some stuff I finished up. Let me get these off of here. Ooh. Okay. Finally, I think I have this piece right here all glued up. Boy, it took forever. Every time I touched anything, it was separated. Took 3 days of gluing and clamping and gluing and clamping to get this thing all done. I still have to, I'm going to be sanding it all down, getting rid of some of this black paint. We're going to repaint this thing when it's over. Let me get this out of our way. The rest of it, same thing. Clamp, glue, clamp, glue, clamp, glue. And we have really accomplished a lot on this, although we still have a lot to go. It's incredible. I was looking at the bottom down here that got most of the water during that flood. This whole thing is loose. So, and down in here, all of this came loose. Probably most of it was loose to begin with. We're going to be clamping all that and that and that. We're going to be working on that last. The rest of it is up at the top. And I'll tell you what, it's just a matter of musical clamps. That's all I can tell you. Let's move on to our next thing for today. What I'd like to do today is get this record rack removed so I can look down along the back side of this mechanism right here. Okay, I want to see what's going on back there. Right now you can't see anything because that record rack is in the way. And I think I've got everything I'm going to need to do it. I got a chisel and a dismantling torch and a hatchet. But first I'm going to try this Allen wrench. If that doesn't work, I'm bringing out the heavy steel. And anything that might break, I'll just put it back together with a rubber band here. Broken rubber band at that. No problem. We can make anything work. Anything. We can fix it. Anything. I'm going to take this 3/16 Allen wrench. I'm going to take that loose over there, and then there's one on the other side. Then we'll move to the next step. Okay, the two bolts are out, and as you can see, it's loose from the base on both sides. But here's where you have to be careful. There is an arm that slides down between these plates. And it's down in the back there, and when you select your record, that arm brings that record up out from between those blades and sets it over here where the turntable is. Okay, this thing here, I'm going to have to do something about this. This is in bad shape right here. Anyway, that arm is very thin. You want to be real careful. I'll show it to you. There's that arm right there. It's black. Slides down between those blades. It catches that record. It's got a thing on the end like a little fork. It catches the edge of the record and brings it on up like that. Got to be very, very careful with that. Plus I have to be very, very careful with this mess up here. This is a real problem child here. This thing comes up. This white and black wire are soldered down here. Easy to get to. But they come up and they go to this. And even if I remove these screws right here, it's still fastened to this mechanism right here. This mechanism right here goes all the way out the back, all the way out to here. Alright? So how do we get this record rack off? Well, I haven't the foggiest idea right now, but it looks like what I'm going to have to do is unsolder these two wires and then thread them back up through. They've got a little fastener here on the side. Bring them up and then remove the entire record rack that way, being very careful of that record arm. I can't remember what they call it. But meanwhile, this thing here is very rusty. This one here, and there's a second one somewhere down at the, where is that? There's a second one, oh, all the way in the back. There it is, way back there. I don't know if you can see it back there. They're going to have to come off and get de-rusted. There's a screw on the end. And they used to have, let me light up another light. Come on, light. There we go. This, let me get a pointer here. I'm always ready. I'm always so ready to go here, These little plastic arms, that brown stuff is grease. So they slide, these plastic arms will be sliding back and forth this rod as the carriage moves back and forth. So we're going to have to get that rust off there, clean it up, and get some good grease on there. At least that's what it looks like to me. Right now, Let me see what I can do about this. One other thing that I noticed, I don't know if it means anything or not, but right here there appears to be another missing bolt right there, and this thing here moves back and forth somehow, but there is a hole for that bolt to go in right there. So I don't know, it might be missing, it might be that's the way it's got to be. I'll tell you what, the book's not going to help me much with this. I'm going to have to really just common sense my way through this. Let me see what I can do about the record rack right now. I decided that the first thing to concentrate on was this thing right here, and to find out if there is in fact a screw missing. I'm almost certain there is, or a bolt, and if so, if this thing is kind of movable, which means that this screw here is probably just loose. Let's see what I can do with just a small screwdriver. Look at there, loose as a goose. Yep, yeah, that thing is that thing was missing right there. What we have here is an adjustment in the center with a locking knob on top, and it put pressure on a shaft underneath. Can't see it without tearing everything up, but that shaft underneath there that goes down here presses against that ball bearing. What we have here is a gear, one gear meshing with the other one, and boy is that thing, I checked all the teeth, they're all there fortunately, but boy is that thing caked up with grease. We're gonna have to definitely do a good clean out down in there. Keep moving. Well, it appears that all I have to do is take out this bottom screw right here, and that top screw up there right there, and then two more on the other side, and this entire mechanism on top will move out of the way in order to get the record rack out. I may not have to, I can leave everything in place up here with the exception of these rusty bars. I don't have to really, I'll take one out at a time and de-rust them one at a time rather than both together. One step at a time. You know, we're going to go nice and slow on this. I told you right in the beginning, I've never worked on jukebox, don't know anything about it. And we're all going to learn as we go, if you know nothing about it either. You guys that know about all this stuff, you know, I'll tell you what, I admire you, first of all, for being in it for as many years as you have. And I wish I had your knowledge, but just bear with me. Before it's over, a lot of us are going to have some of the knowledge you have. So let me get those two screws out over here and over there and see if I can't lift this entire mechanism up, leaving the record rack here, because I got to be real careful with that finger that sticks down in that record lift, I guess is what they call it, that's down in there. Got to be careful. Well, removing those bolts did something. They're 5/16 by the way. Something. The whole thing on the top is moving now. Alright, let's see if I can slip it up and move it over and somehow arrange where we don't actually have to remove this black and white wire, but I will if I have to. Not that big a deal. They're easy to get to right here. Well, as expected, I got the entire mechanism off. The problem is these two wires right here. Check this out. They are really ragged. Those two wires going down in there, I've got bare wires right there. Look at that. Where that black wire goes up there, you can barely make it out there. See the bare wire? So, it looks, I'm not sure what happened here. Why would there be? It looks to me like this thing's been taken out before and they just cut the wires and just twisted them back together and put some tape on them or something. I don't know. Well, guess what? We're not going to live with that. No, we're not. We're going to take them off and do it right. We will remove the black and the white wire, and then we can set this whole mechanism to the side until we can get time to mess with it. The white wire hook's right here. I've got my alcohol brush. I've been kind of cleaning it up because I'm going to have to desolder that thing. I don't want all that gook and crap getting all over my soldering iron tip. And the black wire comes down and solders right there to that second pin from the bottom. And we're going to do the same thing with that. We're going to clean that baby all up too. Get that thing squared away before I extract that solder. For this job, I'm going to use Mr. Hackle. I want as much of that old solder extracted off of that lead and that pin as much as possible. And if I would have used just my standard old solder sucker, you know, the blue plastic one, the plunger one, wouldn't have been as good. So this thing here has done wonders for me. It works great. I know that some of you who have had this, you know, Never could get it to work right, but could have been a problem with the, with the gun itself. I've never had any problems. So let's see if I can get a focus here first of all. Let's see if I can get something on there that will maybe extract some solder. You got to heat. I've got it on maximum heat, and I'm extracting it and getting it to melt. Well, they didn't have very much solder on that to begin with, did they? Wow. Let's try it again. You want it as melty as you can get it. There we go. Tell you what, while we're at it, why don't we just go ahead and extract the one off the black solder too, off the black wire, the solder from the black wire. Oh, that's melting real good there. Well, I'll tell you what, those little wires wanted to be really stubborn, but we finally got it out. Right here is the bottom one, the black one. Got it all cleaned up, solder extracted. I went ahead and tinned a brand new end on it, so when it comes time to put it back in, we're good to go. Same thing up here with the white one. It wanted to be stubborn also, but we've got that baby all cleaned up, ready to go. Alcohol cleaned, solder extracted. So when it comes time to put it back, all we have to do is run it right up through the hole and solder it. Well, when I pulled the wire up through here to get it free like the black one is, look what happened. The other end wasn't even soldered. It was just down underneath there somewhere, somehow hanging up. Maybe one little wire, one little strand, I don't know. Well, let's find out. We're going to have to turn that baby over and take a look at it. I may have to wind up, it's possible. I may have to wind up just putting a whole new wire in for this. I mean, if it's already out. I mean, I've got a whole pile of wire over there. Why should I mess around with some dumb thing like this, hey? Well, we're going to have to make some room here because yes, I am smelling success. Let's get our old Hacko moved over here somewhere out of the way. It should be fairly cooled down by now. Got that baby right there. And I'm going to save my coffee for my success. Okay, let's see if we can move it over. How about that? How about that? Yowza bowza. Oh, it's time for coffee. Time for a successful sip of coffee. Or I should say a sip of coffee for success. Yes, All right, let's see if we can get the old record changer off now without messing up that arm that lifts the records. We have reached another decision point. Remember, this was the AY100U memory unit. This is where all those toroid coils were. And it's fastened in with a screw here and a screw there, and I think there's two on the other side. Should I go ahead and remove these screws and get this thing out of the way so it never gets damaged while I'm messing around with this? Or should I just take it all off in one piece? Which I could do right now, but that means I got to drag around the memory unit with me along with the electrical cord that comes into it. That's a big old thick cord. Let me see if I can find it over here. That's this big old thick thing over here. It goes up into this end. Decisions. What should I do? I'm going to have another sip of coffee. You'll know in the next segment. We're going to leave it in one piece all together, and I'll tell you why. It's because my mentor, Brendan, has cautioned me to be wary of screws that are slotted. Like this, see how that's slotted? It's not just a round hole, it's slotted, which means it can be moved left and right, it can be adjusted. If I take that thing off and I don't get it back exactly where it was before, it may not work. These fingers underneath, you'll recall, see those fingers? Those fingers that ride on this thing won't be touching the right areas, the right pins and all that jazz. So, what we're going to do is just take it all off in one fell swoop. One more thing before we remove this. Remember that record arm? That record arm has to be moved to the rear. This way, out toward the AY100U memory unit. It has to go back in one of those slots. So, let's see if I can get my light down here where we can see what we're doing. In other words, this thing right here, where's it at? I'm having trouble seeing it. This thing down in here where my finger's at is supposed to, see how it's moving it back and forth? I want that thing all the way to the rear before I start lifting this thing off. Don't ask me why, I just know that that needs to be done. It probably has to do with a clearance thing. Maybe more clearance in the rear than there is in the front. I don't know, let's just do it. Well, we have been successful today so far. The record rack is now off, and that little arm, let me see, that little arm that had the little hook that catches the records. I want you to see this. This is kind of neat. It just looks like a little, Y, a little U. And what happens is the record fits right in that U right there, right between those two little prongs. See them? And it stays down like this, and then when it goes back and forth on the gears, and then when it gets to the record it wants, it catches the edge of the record between those two prongs and just lifts it right up, puts it right up there where it's supposed to go, so it can be played. Pretty cool, huh? But look how dirty this thing is. After all we did the other day, it's still really a mess. So we're definitely going to give it another shot, and that's going to be done tomorrow. But first, staying with the discipline mode, we're going to go ahead and put our screws back in here. Now here's the other one over here. The screws that held the record rack in are already in the holes where they came from. We don't lose any screws. No. We may wind up with that one that's messed up or an extra one floating around, but we don't lose the primary screws in particular. So all of this is going to be cleaned, and this actually is pretty loose. I'm surprised. And this thing here is supposed to go over and come back. And as you can see, it's pretty stuck. Dirty. Lots of gook. Everywhere gook. We'll give it a good cleaning, and we'll do that tomorrow. So it's getting a little late. I think I'll head to the house, get in the shower, and get ready for working in the yard tomorrow before I can come out here. By the way, this is your clutch mechanism again. There's a gear at the top up here that rotates like this horizontally and activates this gear. Actually, this gear right here is turned by the motor. This big old black motor back here, okay? And that gear in turn turns this gear, which in turn turns that gear behind this plate right here, which is a vertical gear, goes down a shaft, turns this gear, and turns your clutch gear down here, which engages with the teeth on this rail, and moves it back and forth the rail like that. It's all one big mechanism all the way through, and that's the way she works. And we've got to get this thing out. There's 3 or 4 bolts that take it out, and then we got it clean back in there. It's all gooked up just like you see it right here. Tons of crap. Sorry, it's got to be done. We're back outside, and before I spray this thing with Simple Green, I wanted to take some of this brake parts cleaner and break up some of the grease and crap on it here, there, and everywhere, just kind of help the Simple Green a little bit, especially down this area here where there was all that grease, and around these parts. We'll hit it with the Simple Green here in a minute. Already you can see that a lot of the parts have loosened up. Remember that one that was all jammed and would barely move right here? Check that out. That's what we're looking for. Nice, easy moving parts. And I think wifey's got breakfast ready for me right now. I'm going to go ahead and eat, come back out, and we'll give it the old spray job with the Simple Green. We'll just let it dry out for now. Well, I'm fast losing shade here, so I better take the old Simple Green and see if that does a better job than the Top Job. I wasn't all that impressed with Top Job, tell you the honest truth, but we're going to go ahead and give this a good soaking. Hopefully it'll really loosen stuff up. Here's a little something I overlooked last time, and I shouldn't have. This is the oil spout for the bearings in the motor. You only put a drop in about every 6 months or something like that. I sprayed it all out with that brake cleaner last time because I thought a little bit of water got down in there, and it did. So this time I'm taking a little valve stem cap that I have, an extra one. I'm just going to set that over the top of that baby and make sure that doesn't happen again. Speaking of the motor, I got an email from Brendan concerning video number, or part number 13. And I'll just go ahead and read you the email, and that way you'll know what we're talking about. It says, in looking over the comments on the new video, he's talking about part 13, I noticed that you should elaborate on an item. The viewer asked about brushes in the motor. That viewer being Lockmeister. Good time to point out that this unit only has one motor, and it not only drives the turntable but operates all the other mechanical operations, including the scanning of the records. It is an AC synchronous motor, so it doesn't have any brushes in it. They use this kind of motor because it runs at a steady, constant speed, so the records turn at a constant speed. This is why we are replacing those two capacitors that I have on order. Okay, Lockmeister, now you know. There is no brushes on the inside of that motor, and now everyone else knows it as well. Good question, buddy. And of course, like before, we're going to go ahead and give the simple grain a little bit of extra help by doing some brush work on this. And like right here, this is pretty dirty stuff there, and now she's beginning to come nice and clean. So what you got to do is keep it moving, keep it working. You know, it's going to take some time to really get. I'll never get it completely clean unless I dismantle the entire thing, which I of course will never do. But we'll do the very best we can. So I think what I'm going to do is, you all know what I'm going to be doing for about the next 10 or 15 minutes. We'll just go ahead and cut this video off here and say until next time, this is John. Alright, one last item as usual. Unfortunately, during the process of brushing off the gook and the goo here, I knocked off this spring with that paintbrush. But no sweat. Piece of cake. I know exactly where it goes. I recently got a comment from our good subscriber. Everybody knows who he is, Buzz1151. And he said he doesn't want to seem like he's critiquing what I'm doing in this jukebox series. I'll tell you what, here's what he wrote. I'll just let you hear it for yourself. Now here's what old Buzz wrote. He says, "Hi John, far be it from me to tell you how to do your own videos, but here's a little critique. Consider it food for thought. The Mr. Rogers type thing you are doing with the newbies wears a little thin. In my opinion, it is good for them to try to figure out how to read a schematic and find parts on their own. That's how all of us learn, and it is not rocket science. That is just my opinion. Nothing more. Don't take it wrong. We all love you, especially me and Dickel. Regards, Buzz." My channel is after those primarily who don't know how to do these things. And it would have been a whole lot easier if someone would have showed me right in the beginning. I wasted an awful lot of time trying to figure out, and I did some damage to various equipment in the process of learning, which I don't want to do. Okay, I don't want others to do it. And so I spent some time. Now, I'm not Mr. Rogers. I'm not trying to be Mr. Rogers, but I often repeat that this channel is for the newbie, not necessarily the young guy, but for anyone who's just now entering our hobby or would like to enter the hobby. So, you know, if we get 100 people a month that know how to do this stuff and they're watching the videos, that's fine, that's great. They can go to another channel and watch a different video if they want. It's the 1 or 2 or 3 people that might chime in and say, "Hey, this is really interesting. I've often wondered how to do something like follow a schematic. It always looked complicated to me." Or some of the old timers would like to have a little refresher. You know, it's been a while since they really sat down and looked at someone else doing this. Maybe they'll pick up a few tips to make things easier the next time they, you know, work on a radio or a piece of old electronics themselves. But, you know, Buzz did say it's food for thought. And so I did. I gave it, you know, I gave it some thought. And the only thing I can say, Buzz, is
you are full of shit.